Hey everybody. I made a little video earlier talking about an interview of Tim Larkin with what the hell was this guy's name? I forget already. Um, Kind of a really bizarre statement a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy made about how before the UFC and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, nobody really knew what worked. They just sort of, it was all Hollywood. They just kind of guessed that this might have worked. One, again, a dumb statement. This usually comes from white people that live isolated from street violence, that don't know what the inner city is all about, that never talked to anybody who was alive during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and, fought in the street. It's a colossal level of ignorance and even arrogance to say something like that without ever having talked to anybody involved in street violence or who had been in prison or worked in a prison or worked in law enforcement during that time. I It blows my mind that someone that's that well regarded, in the martial art world actually has that level of ignorance and is that accepted by society. Holy crud. Y'all live in a fantasy world. You live in a fantasy world, not knowing what real world violence is. Uh, no denigration on anybody doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as a martial artist. You're a martial artist. You're not sitting on the couch. You're not hanging out smoking cigarettes and drinking yourself to death. So kudos. You're doing something good with your life. But man, do you people need an education about the real world. So, you know, uh, there's this Brazilian Jiu Jitsu instructor, school owner, MMA coach who got stomped and beat with brass knuckles um, by a crowd of people. And he went to intervene. And, you see on the video, he immediately closes in and grabs someone. They gang punch him. They're beating him. They knock him down, start kicking him. It was horrible. And then they show footage of him with the oxygen mask on in the hospital. Hey, I hope you fully recover, and I hope the people that attacked you receive justice. Um, but let's get down to it. That person's instincts always run towards grappling range, and that is one situation where you should not do it. Okay, that should be the last thing you do. Um, I was talking to an associate of mine, Michael Fuchs from Connecticut, and he talked about how when he was young and in training in the martial arts, uh, his his coach, his sensei Sifu, made them do this drill where he would blow a whistle and they drop down to the ground and get up as fast as possible. And he said, he was never sure what it was all about. Maybe just fitness, kind of like bends and thrusts. But actually, now that you understand street violence, the minute you're down, you want to get up. You want to get up fast. You don't want to stay on that ground. It's a deadly area. For most of human history, grappling, weapon assisted grappling, or grappling assisted weaponry has been a huge part of military training. From everything from Turco Mongol warriors on the steppe to Highlanders to European knights to Aztec Jaguar warriors and Plains Indian warriors, for a reason. When you have a weapon, you're going to close to grappling range. And then, for a reason, extended ground grappling is part of none of that. Aside from the modern era, competitive sports, Greco Roman wrestling, ancient Greek wrestling, yes, involved quite a bit of work on the ground, but that's because it was a sport, it was the Olympic Games. Military training was more like pancratium, right? Yet another thing, people are like, nobody knew it worked. Pancratium was a mixed martial art thousands of years before you Brazilians even existed, before there was a Brazil. Do you really think that nobody in the martial art world in Asia during the Warring States period of China, during the age of the samurai in Japan, do you really think nobody tested their jujitsu, their grappling, their striking? That's stupid. Let me tell you a story of a multiple attacker situation I was in. Um, I was the victim of a multiple attack, and someone came to my rescue, and I'll show you how it went down, and now you'll understand. The neighborhood I lived in was a mixed neighborhood. We had people of all types, and one of the older boys in the neighborhood was a kid named Andre, uh, stereotypical black basketball player type. He liked to play basketball in the park, and he was tall, athletic, lean, wore these big ass goggles and the 70s basketball shorts. I was in grade school, and I was in the schoolyard, and a bunch of kids were fighting me, and they had me against the wall. They were punching me in the stomach, and I was bent over, and I was getting punched in the face. And I hear like, "Hey, stop!" And as I'm getting beaten, my head naturally turns toward this loud sound, and I saw Andre hurtling through the air with a picture perfect flying sidekick. And he hit one kid dead in his ribs. I think it was his left side, right? Because I believe his right side was facing me. So maybe he was a lefty loading up his right hand. And that kid dropped like a stone. And then Andre just lands and he's like, "Leave him alone." And they all looked at him and they ran, right? So this is a technique that's supposed to be, one of the least usable karate techniques in the world. A flashy, useless technique. And it literally resolved a multiple attacker situation similar, at least tactically, to what that horrible beatdown that martial artist got in Texas. You have to understand that if he would have came in with a fast strike, boom, popped someone, zipped out of range, boom, popped another one, zipped out of range, a stick and move thing like boxers learn how to do, right? He would have had a fighting chance, right? Number two, if he was me, if I was that person and I was a martial arts instructor, I don't go anywhere without a pocket knife. I'm trained in multiple weaponry, and if the state allows me to conceal carry, if I thought I don't off, Missouri, you can conceal carry. Sometimes do it, sometimes don't. It really depends on how much racism is in the press and what I see being stirred up around me with all these angry old white guys, the ones that tried to overthrow the government and didn't succeed it again. Another failed Confederacy, so screw you guys. But I always carry a pocket knife, and I'll tell you something. A Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt with 15 years training is less prepared for that type of mass attack than someone with 6 months of Kali and a pocket knife. Okay? If you train in Kali and you train regularly and you do some, padded weapon sparring with your stick and your knife and you understand the concept of sticking and moving, because in Kali we do mass attacks all the time. And honestly, in karate we did it all the time and in kung fu. We put someone in a circle and have people take turns attacking them one, two, and three at a time. My testings were like that. Several of my testings in both karate and kung fu. And Ali, we didn't have testings, we just worked out. We did this. So, everything in its place. Grappling range is real. Honestly, in the real world, most of the grappling you're going to do is going to involve a weapon. And the smartest thing you can do if you tangle up with someone in the street is to get the hell back up. If there's more than one person, sometimes people will challenge you to a fight and you'll get in that fight and you'll get the upper hand and mount someone and the girlfriend will stab you in the kidneys, kick you in the face, or hit you in the back of the head or neck with a lead pipe. Okay? This belief that nothing prior to 1993 works, was ever tested, is a fantasy you all live in. It's as much of a fantasy as some of the early UFC fighters who had never done much full contact training at all and had never, you know, dealt with a grappler. that they could prevail in this new format without any specialized training. Okay? So, again, it's like any martial art. You got to know its limitations and its context. Anyway, yeah, multiple attackers.